So, another one question that I get a lot, or at least topic that I get a lot, is Mary Magdalene. People would like to know about Mary Magdalene. Here are my memories that I have. Here are my feelings that I have as well. From memory, I remember her being fairly short. Very dark, long, curly hair. She had these eyes that looked sort of greenish yellow, kind of. Did you ever see the Time Life cover from the first Afghanistan war? That picture of the young Afghani girl with the very piercing eyes. She had those kind of eyes. They were very piercing. She smiled a lot. She laughed a lot, and she laughed a lot with Jesh a lot. Very, very much. They enjoyed each other very much. She doted on him, hand and foot. And she did it not out of service, but out of just absolute love and affection. She just loved him to no end, and he loved her right back. They were a beautiful example of a loving relationship. They also were very aware of the work they were doing together. And I say together because he could not have done what he did without the support of a loving partner in that situation. Without that support, he could not have done the things he did because he needed, we all need some sort of support in our life. It doesn't have to be a loving or a romantic relationship. It could be friends and family, but we all need to have some kind of support, and he had this loving wife who was very much in huge support of him for everything he did. She laughed with him, she joked with him, she argued with him. They were a very good married couple. And I say married because they were, for all intents and purposes, we knew, from my memory, that was his wife, period. No question. Another question I always get about Mary Magdalene is, did she have children? Well, this really didn't come into mass consciousness until after Dan Brown wrote his Da Vinci Code book. People started thinking, oh, well, there's this bloodline and all this stuff. And I never saw her pregnant. I never saw her with children, and I never saw Jeshua having children. I never saw that happen. I also know that from memory, Johannes ben Zebedee, John, was the only one of the disciples, one of the 12 disciples, who was at the crucifixion. And the reason he was at the crucifixion because he was there taking care of the two Marys, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. He was there, stout-hearted, to take care of them, because that's what Jeshua would have wanted. And that's why you hear on the cross, you hear on the Bible, it says, mother, there's your son, son, there's your mother. And it says right in the Bible, John took Mary into his house as part of his family from that point on. At this point, Joseph was already passed away. He was an old man early on, but he has already passed away. So Mary was without husband and the children that she did have were into their own lives at this point, and many of them were on Jeshua's own mission. His brother James was on the mission and was spreading the word as well. After the crucifixion, my job, my core job that I took upon myself was to make sure that those two Marys were safe. And so I packed them up. Okay, they were a mess just like I was, and I got them out of Jerusalem and I took them back to Galilee. And in Galilee, they lived in my home because we were far away from Jerusalem. It was less likely that anyone was going to come searching for two women in that time, but they were less important to the men of that time period. And so I took them to my home in Galilee. they stayed there for quite some time for safety reasons. And then after some time, Mary of Magdala's family came from Magdala to retrieve her, and they actually took her back to their family home to bring her back there. Her family was very wealthy, and no, she was not a prostitute in any way, shape, or form. That story was actually a fabricated story later. Wasn't even in the early writings. And even then, it wasn't about her. It was about a prostitute. Mary's name is never even mentioned in the original story, but over time, people have made it Mary Magdalene because of the fact that they had to justify that Jesus was not married and did not have a wife. And so they justified that by making Mary Magdalene the prostitute in that story. But in that story, the prostitute had no name. It was not her. So that's a fabrication by later churches to make Jesus' divinity seem more credible, even though his divinity is not in question. What's really in question is our divinity, because that's what he taught. So Mary Magdalene was a lovely, wonderful, fun, and strong person who took care of her man, Jeshua, who was very opinionated herself, who very much understood the teachings extremely well. I have no doubt in my mind, after she was back in Magdala, she talked about and taught the teachings in that area. I have no memory of her again after her family picked her up and took her back. I then took Mother Mary to Ephesus in Turkey and then left her with another when I went on out traveling and teaching the word and setting up groups around the area to learn the teachings, eventually being arrested and sent to Patmos, and then coming back to Ephesus later. And Mary, the Mother Mary and John are supposedly both buried in Ephesus. I've not made it there yet. It's one of the places. And when I tried to get to Patmos, I was in Greece, and we were trying to get to Patmos, and the storms came up and did not allow me to get to Patmos. So I just think it was a bad time of the year to go. So, but that's my memories of Mary Magdalene. I don't believe she was pregnant. I don't believe she had children from Jeshua. But I do believe that she was his wife, and they had a loving, wonderful relationship, and I like her. So there's my thoughts on her. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.